Welcome, colleagues, to the Global Coalition to Address Synthetic Drug Threats. This is Working Group 1, September session, and this is the final time that we come together through these monthly meetings. So at the outset, I want to start off by thanking our team for all of their hard work over the past year. Sarah Finmore and Bill McGlynn, the sort of permanent Global Coalition team for this sub-working group. Greg Alessandro also has been a tremendous contributor. And then we've had our technical moderators, Henki, Cyril, Connie this morning, all the interpreters at State Language Services, and Patrick Tapia. I want to recognize and thank them, as well as all of the co-chairs and international organization coordinators that have been supporting us as well. And of course, all of you, the participants that have been active contributors and developers to this process. I have some announcements I want to start off by saying. This is as I said, the final working group meeting. However, it's not the end of the coalition. We are now entering our second year, and I will describe a bit of what that will entail in the coming slides. Today, the co-chairs of the working groups and the sub-working groups will take stock of what's been accomplished and provide a vision for the future. So we're looking forward to everyone's reflections. In the second hour, we will have a presentation from the director of the new European Union Drugs Agency, EUDA, Alexis Gusteel. And then
I apologize, Brian. If I might pause, I'm getting some chats that there might not be audio for you. Henki, could you please check and make sure that there's audio for Brian?
I can confirm that there is audio for Brian and also audio from interpreters.
You can hear me.
Okay.
I can hear you well.
If you can hear me, you can hear me.
Okay. It might be a single thing. Okay, thank you.
So thank you, Sarah. So in 2024, what's next for us over the coming months in the coalition? We have a United Nations General Assembly side event, which I will discuss in a moment. We will have the release of a year one report, and we will have regional events as well as some lines of actions and meetings that will take place for organizations that are interested in participating. First, the United Nations General Assembly event. On the margins of the 79th UN General Assembly High-Level Week, the United States will host a side event for the Global Coalition to recognize the work accomplished to date by the coalition and mobilize further action to tackle synthetic drug threats. To demonstrate the importance that the United States places on this issue, we anticipate that President Biden has intended to host this event. With that in mind, we seek participation from heads of state from countries participating in the coalition and encourage countries to send their highest representative to participate in the event. Invitations will go out shortly once we finalize the event's date and time. And with the invitation, we will circulate a pledge for countries to take actions within their own jurisdictions. We hope this is something that your countries can support. And to then describe what the pledge is, I would like to read verbatim what the text of the pledge will state for all of the heads of state and foreign ministers to consider. Launched in July 2023, the Global Coalition to Address Synthetic Drug Threats is an international effort to counter the global threat posed by synthetic drugs like fentanyl. Under the auspices of the coalition, over 150 countries and international organizations have joined forces to disrupt the illicit production, distribution, and sale of synthetic drugs and their precursors, and the criminal networks that traffic these drugs, detecting emerging drug threats, and promoting public health interventions to prevent and reduce illicit drug use and associated health-related problems. In order to further these efforts, we, the following undersigned coalition members, pledge to take the following actions within our own jurisdictions. 1. To regulate all synthetic drugs and precursor chemicals placed under international control by the United Nations Commission on Narcotic Drugs. 2. To review relevant policies, regulatory and legal authorities, identify gaps that impede the effort to effectively address the synthetic drug threat and take appropriate actions to close those gaps. 3, to expand public-private partnerships in the ongoing work to secure supply chains and disrupt trafficking, including by encouraging know your customer best practices and protecting against illicit activity within the chemical, pharmaceutical, shipping, consignment mail, social media, and financial sectors. 4, to share relevant information regarding suspicious shipments or trafficking of drugs with the appropriate international and regional entities. 5, to develop and expand mechanisms to monitor real-time data on trends in illicit drug use and commit to share that data as appropriate regionally and internationally. 6, to expand quality, access, and availability to treatment and other public health measures, including overdose prevention medication, to protect against drug-related illnesses and deaths, and expand training for the public health workforce addressing substance use. And 7, to support as appropriate international capacity building efforts consistent with available resources and authorities. This is the pledge that will be shared at the UN General Assembly, and we invite participants in the coalition, the governments, to sign on to this. Now, if you missed it or would like to obtain a copy, you can obtain a copy of what I just read on the Global Coalition website. If you log in with your accounts, I have added it to every sub-working group. You'll find my posting with the document that you can download and share within your governments. So what is left to accomplish in the next phase? Well, now we move into the operational phase beginning in October. And how will that work? We discussed it last time. We will have collective meetings. We discussed that we'll have a donors conference at some point in the near future in Vienna. We will organize a thought leaders conference next year to help forecast the future directions of synthetic drug production, trade, trafficking, distribution, monetization, consumption, etc. We may also have collective meetings of working group co-chairs. And I know specifically Working Group 1 is interested in having another face-to-face meeting. So that will be something that we will be looking to support. Regional meetings. We will be looking for international organizations to help us organize meetings on a regional basis so we can have more in-depth discussions of the realities and the unique challenges of each region with their own synthetic drug issues. We will also be looking at implementing lines of action, very concrete activities. We hope we can discuss and perhaps finalize some of those in today's meeting, but we will also be looking at further discussions, and we will develop plans of action for each of these so that we can then have a schedule over the coming months. And that is a place where colleagues, as participants in the Global Coalition in the second year, we will be looking for you all to join lines of action that are of interest for you professionally within your scope of work. And if there are things that are missing, we also invite you to share with us where you think we should be strengthening these lines of action. Now, one thing on the website that you'll notice is different is the last tab to the right, which used to say schedule, meeting schedule, and now it says upcoming events. If you click on that link, you will see that the events for the coming months are going to be there. You'll see the old calendar is under previous events, but you will notice that all of the events that we have for year 2 of the coalition, we will start populating. We will do this on a recurring basis, so we encourage you to check into this part of the website regularly and to look at the events that are taking place. If there's an event that you are interested in participating or you want to make sure that your government is participating in, you can click on the contact link and send an email to the corresponding officer or the corresponding international organization staff member, and we will get back to you with information. Also, some of the activities, initiatives that we will have, maybe trainings, maybe webinars, maybe special technical sessions, those will have the registration forms through this page. So you will click on links, and you will be able to then see what opportunities are there for you, and you'll be able to register. So as I said, please check out this page, and you'll see the different events that are there on the calendar. So with that, I thank you very much for all of your attention and support. syntheticscoalition@state.gov is our email for any questions or queries. Now, today we are going to turn it over to the co-chairs first to present. We will record the full session. And once we're done with the co-chairs' reflections, we will then move on to open it up for discussion. So first, I'll start with Subworking Group 1.1, and Monica Ashish Batra from India, Subworking Group 1.1 co-chair, is first. So Monica, over to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Brian. Are you getting my video? Because I am not getting the video.
Not your video, but we could hear your audio clearly.
We can hear you.
Okay. And I can't, I am not getting your video as well. So please help me in that. Anyways, thank you, Brian, and all the chairpersons of the subworking groups and working group of Global Coalition on Synthetic Drugs, and representatives from, I get, okay, I'm getting this. Representatives of USINL and all participants, a very good morning to all of you, and a namaste from India. So 1 year's journey of togetherness has been enthralling, and the knowledge gaining experience has been wonderful. I take this opportunity to appreciate one and all for bringing us to one platform and envisaging an outline for the course of actions to deal with the menace of synthetic drugs having global impact. And I would also like to congratulate all of us for circulating such a comprehensive agreed recommendations, which are manifestations of substantial contributions and sincere participation by one and all. The series of interactive sessions held virtually during the last 1 year, followed by face-to-face interaction at Thessaloniki, have proven to be very informative and productive. The recommendations of all subgroups and groups circulated by INL in the month of May 2024 are exhaustive and give us a lot of ideas about the way forward. Appreciating the diversified socio-political and economic conditions of participating countries, having varied rules and regulations for fight against drugs, the mammoth and Herculean task awaits before us, and that is of implementation of recommendations coming out of our painstaking effort of 1 year. We need a meticulous and detailed plan of actions to implement them religiously. Here, I would like to apprise that the Government of India has adopted a zero tolerance policy towards drug trafficking and addiction. And further, we have pledged to make the country drug free by 2047, when India will be celebrating its 100 years of independence. If we talk about the subject of Subworking Group 1.1 and its recommendation, India has already adopted several measures such as the public-private partnership, enhancing capacity building of the drug law enforcement officers, outlining safe disposal of seized drugs, as well as implementing the regulatory and monitoring mechanism on manufacture, supply chain of precursor chemicals to check any diversions. At the same time, Government of India has ensured that the licit use of precursors, particularly in the pharma sector, may not be hampered to cater to the humongous needs of the population of the country. Fully understanding the need to take into confidence all the stakeholders, the Government of India has reached out to the chemical industry to evolve a voluntary code of conduct with a view to check, detect, and prevent the diversion of precursor chemicals. I'm happy to inform all that the MOU has also been signed recently by the Indian Chemical Association in this regard. Appreciating the alarming drug scenario and need for forging closer cooperation and coordination, India and US have agreed to revisit the existing agreements and expand the scope of cooperations by signing the new drug policy framework and also a memorandum of understanding on the precursor chemical scenario. Significant efforts have been made on the front of capacity building as well. Uh, we need to keep our pace of enthusiasm and sincerity in the participation and deliberation at this platform. Next 1 year should focus on finding the ways in implementing the most of the recommendations which have been compiled. Therefore, we need to have a definite strategy and plan of actions to draw agreed and workable solutions as well to implement. So I would like to suggest just these are few thoughts which came to my mind, few strategies and plan of action for next 1 year. Firstly, I suppose the low hanging fruits would be taken at first by identifying the recommendations which can be easily implemented. For example, focusing on capacity building and imparting training so that which are the countries which are lacking the requisite resources and expertise can also come at par. In this regard, India has already started capacity building of other country or other neighboring countries, and we are more than happy to impart training and capacity building or awareness programs to other countries as well. I suppose the second would be compartmentalizing the recommendations as we had discussed in Thessaloniki also, depending on the most difficult ones and the easy ones. We can say that the adaptation of similar regulatory and policy on drug related matters by each country can be put in some kind of a category, and compartmentalized recommendations can further prioritize by countries for implementation as per their requirement. Recommendations can be identified on the basis of duration also, duration required for I mean, what I mean is by short term or long term recommendations and the implementations it requires. And fifth, it would also identifying countries requiring assistance in safe handling of disposal of drugs and other recommendations. We also need to make a consensus at the international and regional forums, particularly amongst the country in adopting similar policies. This was also discussed in Thessaloniki also, that we need to also have regional cooperations as we understand the importance of trafficking and diversion at the regional level also. So adopting similar policies and regulatory mechanism on drug related matters at regional block levels is also very important. I'm confident that the regular interactions and deliberations during the second evening as well will be made with equal enthusiasm, and which will definitely yield tangible results and workable solutions. I, from my country's behalf, I assure my fullest contribution at this platform to achieve the solutions which will be acceptable to all. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Monica. Thank you for that very complete list of recommendations. And for subworking group 1.2, we have Anthony Conway here with us. So Anthony, over to you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks, Brian. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, colleagues and friends. As the superintendent responsible for the Australian Federal Police's illicit drug strategy, I continue on working to enhance my organisation's ability to effectively collaborate with international partners to protect Australians by finding solutions to best disrupt the supply of illicit drugs and precursors into Australia. That's why I put my hand up to be the co-chair of the Trafficking of Synthetic Drugs sub-working group. And certainly over the last 12 months, my involvement within the Global Coalition has opened my eyes to the global threat of synthetic drugs, which sadly, even over the last 12 months, has continued to grow. It's my assessment that to mitigate this threat, it's critical that we maintain the momentum of the Global Coalition to enhance international cooperation, the sharing of intelligence and best practice procedures with regard to combating global trafficking. During my opening remarks in Thessaloniki, I acknowledged that each country is impacted by synthetic drugs in different ways, and what role each country could play and should play within the global coalition is going to be different. Certainly, from an Australian perspective, over the last 12 months, we've definitely seen an increase in the domestic seizure of a variety of nitazenes, which are a highly potent class of synthetic opioids. Nitazenes have been found in counterfeit pharmaceutical medication, represented as other opioids such as heroin, and in non-opioid substances being sold as GHB, ketamine, MDMA, and cocaine. There's certainly also been a significant rise in nitazene-linked fatal overdoses across Australia. And, you know, addressing this problem over the past 12 months, we've identified over 1,700 darknet marketplaces listing selling nitazenes, with 3 out of 4 being offered for delivery to Australia. So the problem is still real, and it's something that we need to continue working towards finding a global solution. And in our meeting in Thessaloniki, the co-chairs collaborated and proposed paths forward to continue the momentum over the next 12 months. The discussions were highly productive and focused on how to best deliver action and tangible reporting results. What we all agreed on to do this, it would be necessary to prepare a strategy or an action plan to deliver solutions and initiatives. We discussed the potential to collapse the East and West groups to remove siloing and promote more effective collaboration. And from the coalition's existing framework, create a leadership structure or a steering committee to plan, review, and supervise a series of work streams over the next 12 months. And Brian, I'd probably describe these as the lines of action you discussed earlier. It's my assessment that this steering committee needs to have the right background, skills, and experiences to appropriately engage and contribute moving forward. And this will be key to the ongoing success of this coalition. Specific to the global trafficking of synthetic drugs, a number of key initiatives have been considered to be planned and delivered over the next 12 months. Again, lines of action. The first being enhancing the capacity of countries to safely dispose of seized illicit drugs and precursor chemicals. But importantly, there's going to be a need to establish a baseline so we can measure existing global efforts and where we need capacity uplift. And also enhancing countries' ability to rapidly schedule new synthetic drugs and precursors. And Brian touched on that earlier in the presentation. These initiatives will require leaders to plan, coordinate, and champion. It is envisaged that they will be drawn from a newly established leadership structure or steering committee. From my perspective, I look forward to contributing to the team, and will maintain the momentum of the coalition and look forward to working collaboratively to deliver global outcomes into the future. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much, Anthony, for those wise words and very interesting and forward-leaning recommendations also. Those are excellent. Now I'd like to turn it over to the co-chair of Working Group 1, the overall working group, Greg Williams, for his thoughts as well.
Thanks, Brian. And I just want to say warm thanks and hello to Monica and Anthony, who came up to Thessalonica, and everybody else who's online and everyone who attended those conferences. I think we said the 2-day conference was fantastic, because I think at the end of that, you know, we're pretty much on the same sort of platform here about what we believe is essential here. What's really, really clear to all of us is a rapid evolvement of transnational organised crime across the world to understand the simplicity of synthetic drugs and the fact that they can obtain endless supply of chemicals that's actually causing this massive problem for all of us. Even Monica, you know, in India, when I was speaking at the drug conference there on the Wednesday, a couple of your guys from India came and spoke to me, and they were saying about their massive concern of methamphetamine coming into the Indian community. So we are seeing this rapid expansion into this area. At Desa Karika, we basically came up with about, I think, 4 key initiatives and we felt as a group that we wanted to focus really in the prevention or the disruption of the supply of chemicals and equipment and pharmaceuticals into the chemical industry as a critical component. We felt that there's already a lot of great work happening in the trafficking space in terms of coalition, agreement across the world and joint investigations and the like that is running. So we felt that that was the key one. And as Anthony said, the first one was initiative one was establishment of a working group focused on chemical, pharmaceutical, and chemical equipment to basically look to disrupt and dismantle illicit manufacture. We think currently, getting a sense over the last year, there is a massive opportunity here. There is already quite significant work happening across the world. There's significant databases that we can access. There's quite incredible knowledge about the chemical companies engaged in this and where they're from. There's a range of private partnerships that already exist and are up and operating. I think there are clearly a number of companies that can support different types of databases. And then significant investigative capability supported by the diplomatic and political work that goes on by United Nations, UNODC, to actually make a significant difference here. I'm not saying at the moment it's the Wild West out there for chemical industry, but you've seen a massive ramp up in 2017, we see, and maybe a further expanding in 2021 that is just allowing this huge production of these highly dangerous chemicals. So the aim is really to design, and Monica, and thanks Monica, I agree with everything you said, and what you're doing in India is awesome. Now I'm going to just try and share my screen here, so bear with me. Share. Oh, is that working? Can you see?
Yes, we can see it, Greg. If you could
Okay,
make it to, yeah,
yeah.
a little larger, yeah.
Well, tell me how I do that, because I did well to even share it. Why won't it go? Why won't it look bigger?
It's not a slide, so maybe you could just scroll down a little bit. We'll see more of it.
Yeah. Okay. How's that? Good. So it's. Hang on, I'll just change it a little bit here. So what you're seeing here is basically we've implemented these and used them across a different range of stuff. In fact, I designed this originally for the disruption of manufacture of methamphetamine in New Zealand. In essence, what we're trying to design here is a one-pager disruption strategy. So it's the strategy on one page about disrupting the supply of chemicals and equipment used to manufacture illicit synthetics. So as you can see here, the aim is to break it down into key components in the way, and I've started to sort of draw the key actions here. And now we're talking about worldwide global response, so it's at a far greater level. But I'll give you an idea of how this works. So we have collaborate, which is partnerships intelligence. And if we talk partnerships here, I'm talking about building an enduring collective working group of worldwide partners. That's part of that initiative one that we want to bring together to basically drive this action plan and this strategy. Work with governments, diplomatic and political organisations. So that's at that political level that we're talking about through the UN and through UNODC and through the various conventions that already exist, and through Europol and the G7, for instance, or whoever we want to basically help drive this. Apply joint agency approach to intelligence investigation, disruption of supply of chemicals and equipment, and then developing enduring private-public partnerships across a broad spectrum of organisation, companies, associations, academia and industry to identify and disrupt the division of chemicals and equipment. So what it does is it gives the actions, if you sense that sense, and you'll see where we're trying to hit around outcomes. What we actually do with this, once it's formalised, the next key thing is the actual development of the actions under it. So if you looked at developing private-public partnerships, there would be a range of key partners that we would want to do. And you'll see with India, they're building a relationship with the chemical industry in their country, with chemical associations. Clearly, you'd want to do it with academia. It could be a number of companies, could be global shipping. It could be companies that we've identified that can provide cryptocurrency movement stuff or global trade. That could be, that's the sort of stuff. So behind and below it becomes the actual action plan, which basically gets prioritized and has owners, and you actually run it with progress and looking for outcomes. So as you feed down this, you can see that the elements of this, and there'll be I haven't really worked all my way through it, but reducing the social harm is a big element because, as I've said to Brian, one of the key elements is understanding the financial cost, let alone the social cost and the health costs across the world by the use of synthetic drugs. Disruption activities is the key bit that we're talking about. For example, we're doing a piece on this Hefi T&J company where we're looking at various databases that hold information about it. We've worked out or found out that it's actually one click off sanctioned because it's trading with Russia. We've got Anthony doing some work with the companies around cryptocurrency because Chinese companies can't actually use cryptocurrency. So we're doing a bit of a test around that. But the whole aim of this is how do we ultimately make it as hard for those companies and organised crime to actually access the variety of chemicals, whether they be ones that are scheduled or ones that are currently legal. Investigation and prosecution is another key element, and that's turning on the tap pretty much worldwide. And we think there's massive opportunity in that sense to actually go after these. And when we say investigation and prosecution, we also talk about things like sanctions and other actions that we want to do. If you imagine you want to try and get to what the sort of like a global fusion center where you build up enough case against an industry or a company that you can say to Worldwide Shipping or others or through customs or B5, that is a tainted company. We can basically establish that through a variety of reasons, and it's shut down and disrupted. It'll say ClanLabs there, but I haven't got down to basically what we're really talking about here, which is elements around production and that sort. Then you're into the bit about exactly what you said, Monica, about building capacity and capability. And you'll see there, this is a leverage of expertise to take advantage of collective knowledge, develop expertise, multi-agency sort of practice is the sort of stuff we're talking about here. Then we get into resources strategy. So the idea is that at the bottom, you'll just see it actually has the organisations in New Zealand that were involved in this, but we would end up with quite a major one. So the point of this, and this initiative, as I said to Brian, is what we need to do now is actually bring this key steering group together. And we wanted to bring the key co-chairs that were at THESA plus other critical people. So there are co-chairs that weren't there. There are people that have ties into the chemical industry. There's people like Matt Nice out of UNDC that sits over Onyx. There's Alan Grimmer who sits at Interpol that's doing a whole lot of work in weapons and that. But we want to bring a core group together, probably up into Washington by the end of this year, because now we need to actually set this in motion. So we're past the talking bit. We're into the actual doing bit of driving all of this. And in the initiative piece, it builds in all those aspects we talked about, and it does look at and still continues to look at the concepts of elements of chemical action task force as it looks under FATF to see what would or wouldn't happen, because even to move something like that on, you have to have really evidence-based work that drives that along. And so this sets the core plan in place that we want to do. Now, the Interpol did a great example of this where they've got regional focus, and I agree with you, Monica. Regional forums and regional focus is critical to making this happen worldwide. But they ran, for instance, a 3-day symposium on the chemical weapons explosives bit in Thailand, for instance. So those symposiums are very valuable in bringing the right people together to actually shape up our thinking. So that's kind of that global one. There's certainly focus also on improving capability around forensic capability around manufacturing, and also around ClanLabs. That's another key component, and also the destruction of drugs, as Anthony has rightly identified as well. So those are sort of some of the key intent that we want to sort of do. And as Anthony said, we need to really now collapse into one working group. It's tricky because of time frames, but really we think now we need to do this. In the end of September, I'm up at the IDEC conference in Greece again. So that is a great opportunity there to actually sit down with Balkan countries and some of the key players as chairs to sort of nut some of this home as well. So again, thank you, Brian. We've had good chats about understanding too the support of State Department and the major agencies out of the United States. They're all critical to we think in progressing this as well. So that's the sort of stuff that we're intent on doing over the next sort of period of time, I guess. Cheers. If there's something else I've missed and all of that, just let me know.
Okay, thank you so much, Greg. Thank you for the framework and the very comprehensive description of the way forward as you described the chemical sector particularly. It's amazing how much you've done there, and that's just in that one sector. I want to open it up for discussion for others to also weigh in. Any thoughts, reactions in terms of the way forward? Like Greg said, and I said earlier on, we do look forward to having an in-person meeting, and I like the idea of a steering group that can help operationalize or take those lines of action forward. I would also suggest that we should be looking to expand some of that as well. If there are partners that are missing at the global level that you all feel is key to incorporate, and these individuals, maybe within your own governments, you might say, well, I represent this agency, but another agency might also be good to bring in. There's no reason we need to remain with the group that we have. We can expand that group as well. But we look to all of you for some guidance and direction in that. So let me open it up. Any comments, thoughts, questions, ideas?
Brian, I can jump in. Hey, Greg and Anthony and Monica, thank you very much for your presentations today. They were excellent, and it's good to see you all, and good to be reminded of what an excellent cooperation we had in Thessaloniki. I just want to touch on a few things that I remember from Thessaloniki that were sort of touched on, but maybe I could emphasize. I mean, obviously, some of the key things that we went through were working closer and further up the supply chain in the chemical industry. And I think Anthony was suggesting this, but setting the context for where are we? Basically conducting mapping exercises to establish baselines upon which we can recognize where different countries are and what type of capacity building efforts are going to be needed. I think some of the other things that we discussed were not recreating the wheel. We have a lot of things that are already at our disposal that if we utilize more effectively, if we get more countries to utilize more effectively, then we're going to be better off. And then just sort of moving forward with a more sustainable model for continued engagement, something a lot like, I do think I agree with Greg, we need to meet again, and we need to meet again soon, and sort of find a way to establish, as Anthony said, the steering committee, the leadership, and then establish getting the right people in the room and basically establishing that whatever the priority lines of effort we are, to make sure that the right people are leading them. So those are just mine. It's, I'm rehashing with what a lot of you have all said, but it's great to see you again, and I'm encouraged to move forward with this.
Yeah, thanks, Greg. Look, from my perspective, we talk about the lines of effort. We nutted out some really good initiatives in Thessaloniki, and it's about having champions involved in those projects moving forward, and the right organisations coming along for the ride as well. And I think, like, for example, the initiative around the destruction of illicit drugs and precursors, talking to your comment about not recreating the wheel, Asma made a good point that the UNODC already have a number of questions that can go out to participant countries as part of a mapping exercise. So it might be worth, certainly for that initiative, UNODC or a part of UNODC is attached to that initiative. And then, we identify within the steering committee a champion or a leader for that particular initiative. And it's on them to timetable out a process over the next 12 months to do the mapping exercise and deliver a report on the extent of what each participant country is doing in that space. And then off the back of that report, we then can determine where is capacity uplift required, where is regional support and training required, and then participant countries from the Global Coalition can all contribute to assisting that particular country with its efforts in regard to that initiative. But again, I will probably harp on that. It's been great working with all the chairs, but maybe we need to go beyond this small group and then find the right people with the right skills to be involved moving forward.
Yeah, I'll say, Anthony, that's a very wise approach. I think the way that you described it with the champion and leader, the timetabling of the process, the mapping exercise, that's very much the process, that the methodology that I've also been thinking about, that I think we've been discussing. I think I've heard the concrete, what I've been calling the lines of action moving forward, where I hear, the discussion of precursor chemicals and equipment as a distinct phase. And I think that in itself is a meeting to kind of tease out the different strategies that can be done there. The building the capacity to safely dispose is the other that I heard. Enhancing the ability of scheduling synthetic drugs is something where WHO is regularly saying the problem is not having review meetings. The problem is receiving the data from countries so we can process more, look at more substances. And so I think that a strategy of looking why countries are not reporting, building capacity to report, motivating, incentivizing countries to report, I think that there's a lot that can be done around that as well. With regard to the private sector, I feel that and especially when we're speaking about precursor chemicals and equipment, we're speaking a lot about the chemical industry. But I think we also need individual, as you called, timetables or action plans for the other industries as well, recognizing that there are some efforts with international organizations, but there's probably a different strategy a broader strategy of engagement for the shipping, for the consignment mail industry, social media. I think one thing that the coalition has done, which has been a really good innovation, is this alliance that was established called the Prevent Alliance that we did with UNODC and some social media companies like X and Meta and Snap, that does Snapchat. And we're looking to expand that to other social media companies as well to prevent youth from accessing drug markets there. And it's been very much on the public health side, but we also need to look at the law enforcement side as well, and sort of what's being done from that angle. So social media, the banking, e-commerce, and then pharmaceutical industry is one that I think touches more on the public health side, and also the artificial intelligence industry as well, especially as it's nascent and there's so much potential good and potential harm that can come out of that as well. So it's a lot to take on, and maybe the idea is we have to prioritize, we have to triage, we have to see who our champions are. If we find enough champions for enough initiatives, then it's much more manageable. But in the absence of finding those leaders, I'd say we probably, chemical is first and foremost on our mind. Then in the West group, earlier this morning for us in the U.S., we had some other very interesting ideas, legal responses, which I think connects very much to what we're doing in Subworking Group 2.2, which is the development of a legislative network. I think that there's legislation that is missing on the supply and the demand side. And then there's been a lot of talk of capacity development and training. And I think that exactly as Monica said, that we have to do what is the low-hanging fruit, what we do well and what we know is necessary. you always will need capacity building or capacity development. The challenge that I find is how best to identify the that workforce and what that workforce needs. And it's not one homogeneous, one single workforce. It's not one law enforcement workforce. I think in this case, we have to look at the different communities of practice that we have. You might have, canine experts, or you might have forensic toxicologists, or postal inspectors. There's just so many different fields within that. I think identifying these different groupings and what each needs. And again, it might be too much to cover everything, but if we can prioritize some of them and actually start working deeply and intensively with some of these networks, then I think we can not just harness the tools that are out there, but better integrate them. We have these intelligence platforms, and we have PICs and PENs and IONICs and grids, and then we have the UN toolkit. But what if we start kind of building that into and getting some sort of feedback from the users, from the different experts, to say, well, it'd be good if we had the toolkit on an app integrated with our intelligence platform. So I click on it, I see a video, I know how to operationalize this information. I don't have to go sifting through this database and that database to kind of tease out information. So I think hearing more from the field, hearing more from the experts, better defining the different, I'd say, customers or constituencies that we have within our field would be very helpful, I think, from my perspective, in being able to better service or better provide the support that's necessary. I don't know if that was clear, but let me ask.
Brian?
Yeah.
Brian, I just think, that's exactly the sorts of things you cover off in that meeting around the action plan that we talked about, right? Because all those are key elements and priorities and things we want to do. I think actually, Anthony and I talked about this, right? Because I know we're buried down this part of the world, right? But the thing that's actually been interesting in the whole global coalition is really falling upon things. So because there is so much going on, right? There is the biggest, hardest thing, I think, one of the most critical things, is to work out, as Greg says, what is everybody already doing? And then how do we actually sort of coalesce that into something that is a coordinated response? So, you talk about the United Nations toolkit, and Bjorn Roberts sent this to me this week, which is the public-private partnerships toolkit for synthetic drugs, sitting there already designed, that we can use as a basis and consider and implement, right? And it's, I've met JARDF West, I know about JARDF North and South. Then I discovered there was another one in Bahrain, somewhere over there. Another one of those centers that focuses on tracking movement of precursors. I had a really good chat to Anthony about how IONICs and Snoop and all of those programs are working already and the effective tools they have. You know what I mean? It's like, there's a whole lot of stuff happening individually, and it would be really good to sort of, it's almost every time I speak to someone, I find something new about something I didn't know or something happening. And that's one of the things I think coming together to kind of coalesce and understand all of this. And then we've always said we don't want to reinvent the wheel here. We want to look at what's working well, but we want to look at what it is that we can actually add to this to tune this up and make it, more effective and has more punch, I suppose, in that sense. So I agree with everything you're saying. That's exactly what we're saying about the initiative and each of the elements that we want to have. I'll give you an idea. After our last global coalition, my ESR scientist for me rings me up and tells me that he's currently the chair of some global coalition around Clan Labs. And they're about to do a whole raft of work into the Pacific Islands around Clan Lab and stuff. And he's come back to me saying that they actually want to join in with us more around the aspect of work they're doing in Clan Labs across the world. So, it's really like trying to get all these people into a room and then go, right, let's get this going. And Anthony and I are pretty excited from a law enforcement proposal. We think there's real opportunities here to really go after the suppliers, the people involved in the actual supply and distribution stuff. Hey, yeah.
Greg, that's very exciting. If there's a global coalition or a coalition already on Clan Labs in the Pacific, I mean, that's exactly the type of individuals that would be the champions, right? That could then sort of connect and lead this effort and connect with others that are working in this area. I guess I'd like to ask the co-chairs in the group what the immediate next steps are. We know we want to have a meeting coming up to be able to meet in person, have a steering group come together. But the immediate next steps, I was wondering, what would the next steps be to establish the membership of the steering group? Get guidance from all of you on who's missing and how do we reach out and who do we connect with to expand that steering group as we constitute that steering group and then set the meeting and arrange for that meeting. And then do we have to wait until the steering group convenes to finalize the lines of action, or have they been articulated here in the meeting today and in Greece? Is that something that could be a paper process where maybe Greg, you can Greg D'Alessandro from our team can connect with all the co-chairs and just kind of finalize this on paper to say, okay, this is what we agree on as the areas of work moving forward, so that we could then maybe even start exploring who the champions might be for some of these. So when the steering group meets, they can then really start just moving right into the action planning, and then some of those champions could potentially be there or be already sort of developing those steps, so we don't lose too much time. What do you all think?
Sorry, I'll just jump. Like, we've actually done this. So we talked about initiative 1 being that initiative around the working group around chemical supply. So we were waiting for Greg's notes to come just to confirm the drafting of the initiative. So the initiative that we came up with, the 4 of them, went around all the co-chairs for feedback on that. So that was the first one. The second one was improving forensic and clan lab investigative capability. So this takes in about 2 or 3 of the recommendations in those agreed recommendations. Initiative 3 was disposal of chemicals and drugs. That was also an element of the agreements. And initiative 4 was around improved systems to rapidly schedule new precursors. And that's the one Anthony talked about. So that went round the co-chairs and asked for feedback in respect to those. The notes of that were confirmed by what Greg sent. So I think even at that conference, for instance, the one round chemical, I think we've already sort of said, like the improving forensics and clan lab, we actually sort of talked to Andrew, what was Andrew's last name?
Cunningham.
Cunningham, whether potentially he could pick up and lead that, because what we've got to do is find a lead, I guess, to drive that element. Now that I've into this clan lab stuff, we could certainly, tie in that sort of element around that process. We talked at the conference about potentially Justin Tetley out of UNODC, or trying to tie in with him, because he is the driver, I think, around disposal of chemicals, from what I understand, having met with him. And we felt the improved system around rapidly scheduling sat with the INCB. But I think Antonio I don't know if Antonio's on, but he had some views on that. But, again, it could be, if we had that full co-chairs meeting we talked about, about bringing everyone together from both sides, we might be able to nut that piece out, or interested in what your guys' view about how best to drive those. And Anthony might have a view, or Monica.
I certainly think there's opportunity out of sessions before any in-person meeting to land on the lines of action, and whether or not they are just the initiatives that we finalised in Thessaloniki, or whether they are expanded. Those can be coordinated over email now. That's something that we can do now. Brian, there's 150 participant countries in the Global Coalition. I also think there may be opportunity to send correspondence to each of those countries, almost an expression of interest to nominate potential champions, people with the right skill and from the right agencies within their country, and we nominate lines of action and see whether or not there is an appetite for people who may not have been as vocal or involved over the past 12 months, give them a new opportunity to get involved moving into the next 12 months. Greg and I have done a lot of talking, but we may not have the right skills or experience or time to champion some of these particular lines of effort. So there's 150 countries. It would be great to send out correspondence to see whether people want to put their hand up to be champions.
I would like to add here. I think I totally agree with Anthony. And as far as the initiatives are concerned, I think Greg has wonderfully explained to us. And since there are so many participants, I would suggest that we start having this screening committee decision was taken, or maybe we discussed it at Thessaloniki, and it's high time that we put in the screening committee people in place. So I think that initiative has to be taken. Otherwise, it would be difficult to move ahead. And the screening committee also can take the decision as to who are the ones which are wanted, like the Clan Lab thing Greg just mentioned. I think anyone or any such organization or any such global coalition can accommodate. So with that note, I think I agree with Anthony and Greg. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all. I think that international organization staff, secretariats, like you were mentioning, Greg, are natural to champion many of these initiatives, because that's their mandate, is to convene governments and to sort of assemble work streams with collections of governments. I think also one thing that you said, Michael, was very interesting. Looking at regional harmonization and regional work and collaboration at that level, it might be that we it's too much to take on the whole world, but if we have regional organizations or regional approaches, we might actually be able to make a lot of advancement, particularly having countries in regions with similar systems being able to collaborate and then have leadership, take on leadership roles within their sub-regional networks. We might get more participation, and it might be more manageable in doing so. UNODC has offices throughout the world, for example, so working with some of the regional offices might also help advance that work as well. So these are all wonderful comments and ideas. I'm going to see if there's any more in just the last minute that we have. Any final comments or questions or thoughts from the room before we move on to the next session? No. Well, if not, I want to. Oh, please, Bill.
Yeah.
Bill, you have the last word.
Thank you. Sorry, I was a little slow in the hand there. Just a quick point. I wanted to thank Anthony for telling us about the situation with regard to nitazines. And this is very important because you may have heard there's been a public health emergency, and I think it was reported on in the working groups in Sierra Leone in Western Africa. And the Colombo Plan and the U.S. Drug Enforcement Administration worked out a test, and protonitazine was found in the test, which, as you know well, I see a knowing nod that's very, very serious, 3 to 10 times as strong as fentanyl. So again, a very serious thing. And again, I think that the sharing of this information is just crucial. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. It's been quite a wake-up call. This was a public health emergency declared by the president of Sierra Leone, a West African country. And the fact that there has been a market, a domestic demand for this, for the chemicals that make protonitazine to come into Sierra Leone, and for the manufacture of that synthetic drug in West Africa, and it's spread beyond Sierra Leone to Liberia and Guinea and other places. It shows that synthetic drugs are so easily infiltrated into any country of any economic development status. It can affect populations at all levels, and it really is a grave threat, not just for high-income countries, but for all countries of the world. So thank you, Bill, for raising that and for that mission. Our work is far from complete. We've got, I think the complexity of the field is a huge challenge. We have the transnational organized criminal groups that are so well organized, and I think we have done through the Global Coalition a great advancement in creating transnational organized law enforcement to go after the transnational organized criminal groups. So thank you all very much for your commitment and the continued work to come. We are so excited and appreciative and honored to count you all as colleagues and friends as we work for this common cause. Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to ask Henki to stop the recording so